Sharks. It's Miss Amanda from the library. I hope you're all having a great summer, and happy Juneteenth. What's Juneteenth, you ask? Well, let me tell you. On January 1st, 1863, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring that it was illegal to have slaves. But some places continued to keep slaves for years. Then, on June 19th, 1865, the Union Army came into Texas and declared that it was illegal, and the slaves were finally free. That's why they celebrate Juneteenth. I hope you can enjoy this book that tells about it. All Different Now. All Different Now. Juneteenth, the first day of freedom. Written by Angela Johnson, illustrated by E.B. Lewis. A June morning breeze off the port blew the smell of honeysuckle past the fields across the yard and into our room to wake us. And nobody knew, as we ate a little, talked a little, and headed to the fields as the sun was rising, that soon it would be all different. Then we worked and worked and worked some more under the hot Texas sun, until word spread from the port to town, through the countryside and into the fields, that the Union General had read from a balcony that we were all now and forever free, and things would be all different now. I watched as my Aunt Laura sang as she held her baby. Mr. Jake, who some say was 100, cried quietly, and a group of grown people bowed their heads and whispered things to each other I could not hear. My mama held my hand softly and looked beyond as another breeze blew over and everything fell to a hush. But later, Papa, Mama, the aunts and uncles, and all of my cousins had an afternoon picnic by the water. My baby brother crawled around our blanket as we listened to the sound of the waves. And as more people joined us, we ate as a free people, laughed as free people, and told stories as free people, on into the night. What was before would be no more. As we walked back home, the cool of the night soothed our tired feet that padded quietly past the shadowy fields of cotton. And in the morning, the smell of honeysuckle will wake me again beside my sisters and brother to a time that we will be, for all of us, all different now. Juneteenth, then and now. At first, Juneteenth was only celebrated within the African American community. Celebrators would play games, eat food, and dress in nice clothing to symbolize that they no longer wore the garments of slavery. Sometimes white landowners who would oppose the celebration by refusing to let their newly freed workers use their property. In response, Juneteenth celebrations mostly took place at churches or on donated land. Eventually, in the 1890s, sites like Emancipation Park in Houston, Texas, and Booker T. Washington Park in Mexia, Texas, were bought specifically for holding Juneteenth celebrations. During the early 1900s, interest in celebrating Juneteenth declined. The Emancipation Proclamation was credited with ending slavery, and General Granger's role in freeing the Texas slaves 2.5 years after the proclamation was widely forgotten. Then, in the 1930s, the Great Depression forced many people off the farms and into the cities for jobs. Unless June 19th fell on a weekend, there were very few participants available to celebrate, as they had to go to work. Awareness of Juneteenth increased again during the Civil Rights Movement in the 1950s and 1960s. African Americans reconnected with this important part of their slave heritage and used it to fuel their fight for equal rights. The Poor People's March in Washington, D.C. in 1968 especially inspired many African Americans to begin celebrating Juneteenth again. Throughout the next several years, African American state legislator Al Edwards helped to increase awareness of Juneteenth until it was finally declared an official state holiday in Texas on January 1, 1980. In today's society, Juneteenth is widely celebrated. It is a day for celebrating African American freedom and achievement. The Smithsonian, Henry Ford Museum, and countless other institutions sponsor activities and celebrations for Juneteenth. Hope to educate more people about African American history and culture in general. However, Juneteenth has also morphed into a more national, symbolic celebration of respect for all cultures.